Yeah, welcome to the first GRC regeneration and governance conversation. Thanks for coming. This is a new topic and a new thing that's kind of emerged out of conversations over the last couple of months and some of the Slack conversation. And so we're going to kick it off and see how things go. And my thought for this first session, like I said, was just to kind of get to know each other a little bit and to get some idea of what people are interested in discussing. And then we can kind of set a more formal agenda going forward, and also to pick a time when we would like to get together and put something on the GRC calendar. And I mean, I can start with a quick introduction, and then maybe we'll just go around and have everybody introduce. And I'm Dave Witzel. I'm spending, I've been traveling the last couple of months, so I haven't been spending much time with GRC, and I apologize for that, but I'm slowly returning. And I spend, a fair amount of time coordinating for GRC. My focus in life is how do we accelerate a regenerative future. I have a background helping to run an internet company back in the 90s and early 2000s, but also I had a public policy degree, master's degree before that. So I'm interested in governance and all kinds of things related to how people make decisions together. And so this topic is exciting to me personally. And I've been particularly interested in how we built the internet is kind of one of my questions, because it's a very distributed, collaborative, nobody owns it kind of thing. And so could we use those same tools and techniques in other places and create the same kind of dramatic global impact that we've seen in the internet? So that's one of the things I go back to a lot. Let me push it over to Cabot and do a quick introduction and point at the next person.
Sure. I'm currently living in Nova Scotia, Canada. Just moved here less than a year ago. We're in the process of building a house in the middle of a clear cut. We came here because we were thinking we wanted to find a piece of land and give it some love. And so that's what I'm up to here for the most part. I'm recently retired from a civil service job with the city of Vancouver in British Columbia as a arboriculture technician. So I have a little bit of familiarity with organizations and how they do and don't function well. And I've been interested in governance for a long time. I've studied various things, sociocracy being probably the thing that comes to mind. It's sort of the root of a whole bunch of other systems as well. And so I'm really interested in, what are some of the very practical and yet effective at bringing good solutions kind of ways of going about things. Around here, I guess I'm primarily interested in possibly forming a multi-stakeholder partnership around forestry in Nova Scotia. I haven't really started exploring this in earnest yet, but so I'd be interested in any ideas and things that can help with that. And I'll pass it over to Colleen.
Thank you. I've kind of lived all over the country and seen a number of different things. I've lived in Maryland and Ohio and Arizona and California, currently living in Utah. My ancestors were Mormon pioneers, and they came to Utah and built cooperatives here. The cooperatives did not do well with the United States tax law. And so most of them ended up dissolving simply because they couldn't figure out how to tax the cooperatives back in those days. So I have been really interested in Mondragon cooperatives in Spain and Europe, and have studied them quite extensively. I'm really pretty excited about what they've been able to accomplish. I recognize that Europeans crowd better than Americans. um, and I found that to be true when I actually have been a visitor there. And I also found out that I actually crowd better than most Americans. So that's been an interesting thing. So I'm very interested in the cooperative movements. I think that we've also studied, American farm cooperatives and agricultural cooperatives, other various different kinds of governance models. And so all of that's really super interesting to me at this point. Lynn, would you like to go next?
Sure. Thank you so much. I used to live in Nova Scotia, Cabot. So Wolfville, Halifax, and Truro, and my sister's in Pictou. So that's why I'm interested in where you are. I am in an exploration of sort of what is the deep code of governance. So I'm a classic governance trained management consultant. So for many years, I've worked as what is the responsibilities of the board and just, really traditional board governance-y stuff. And I've had the opportunity, I teach at York in a session called, or a course called Accountability Issues in the Public Sector. And I have my own company, the Accountability Group. And my interest in this particular group is huge because I really have a need for sharing some of the ideas and getting feedback on some of the fundamental premises. And to make that long story short, it has to do with what is governance, basically. So, I know we can talk about different forms, be it sociocracy or structures like cooperatives or DAOs or whatever, but it's like, what is the understanding of what is governance and what is fiduciary? And fiduciary is being so limited in its view. And how do we, in a situation where the commons is in peril, how do we integrate in this wall of corporate understanding, that fiduciary has to include the commons and, that upon which all life rests. So I have the opportunity, and I'm working on it, to develop a chapter on regenerative governance, which of course is a heady title and absolutely well beyond my capabilities, but still it's a foothold. But this particular chapter is going into this very serious book by Wiley. I guess I can't really see it. And I am working on that. And I have some, it has to do with sort of, there's a longer conversation we could have, but there's elements of it like the three horizons thinking and thinking in terms of complexity and the resource flows, input, output, stocks, et cetera. There's just some really fundamental ideas that have to go into governance pronto. So that I'll stop there, but I'm really glad to be here. Thanks.
Do you want to point at the next person?
All right, Michelle.
Morning, all. Michelle Durham in central Minnesota in the US. I apologize. I had to pop on and then pop off quick, but so I might have missed a couple of people. What's coming up for me right now, as far as like why I'm coming to this, is and a little bit about my background is my connection to Adlerian psychology, which has always been a holistic psychology, and the term Gemeinschaftsgefühl, which is community feeling. And so this is part of that for me. Governance, I will say that it's way like governance itself, I'm not only not interested in, but like it's not my thing. But I know that the heart piece has to come into this or it doesn't work. So I am coming in with the heart piece, but also I know that this is part of it. So I'm coming in with curiosity. And Catherine, have you gone yet?
Oh, thank you, everybody. And I'm really glad to be here. Sorry, I was a tad late. I've been interested in governance my entire life. Most of my consulting work was actually with government, and sort of serendipitously. And I'm currently in a small church of about 100 people, which is trying to figure out how to create a new governance system. We were badly bit by a thing called policy governance in the church system. And that posits the minister as a CEO, which is kind of not a minister's usual role. And it really is fertile ground for those who have agendas be able to manipulate the system really well. So we've been playing with sociocracy. I've been interested in holarchy. DHOC did some interesting things at Visa. And what I'm seeing over and over again, and I don't know how to institutionalize it, is communication. It's just the ability of people to talk to each other. That's really what it is. And people don't know how to talk to each other. It's not a habit we have. So the habit is the biggest block to most things. I don't care what you decide should be done. People don't do it because they just don't think about doing that. When I was in the total quality business, we had some wonderful tools for that. When you had a meeting, you actually had a checklist. And you talked about who needs to know, who's going to be impacted, who should know, because those aren't always really clear things. And so it helped remind people to think about who to tell. In organizations, communication is always like the major issue. People always complain most about that. And what that really means is that I don't know what's going on. Nobody tells me. And that's the truth of it. People don't tell other people who should know, or they remember way too late and it's already been a, oh crap, they didn't include me again kind of experience. I've been intrigued with Eleanor Rostrom's stuff. What I see in her work is a way of giving responsibility to the group for the governance, which I haven't seen in anything else. And I think that's really useful because governance is always other folks. It's never me. That's the problem. So if I become responsible for whether we're doing this, that, or the other thing, then I have the permission, if you will, to speak up about it. Whether I will or not's another matter, but at least that's inherent in that system. So that's kind of what I'm looking at in the experiment that I'm in right now, is how to meld Eleanor Ostrom's stuff with sociocracy. I feel the same problems with sociocracy. The circles are great. It's wonderful to go around a circle. That's actually something that people really love. People have been surprised that our church talks about how we like our governance system because we go around and people really have their voice. That's great, but nobody's taking responsibility yet. Nobody's seeing that the governance is us. It's still a system we're trying to make work. And there's very little crosstalk across circles. People don't quite get that they need to do that, don't feel like they can. Circles are sacrosanct. I'm not in the circle. Why should I talk with them? And it's that crosstalk that makes the difference, because that's what pulls the whole thing together. We do have a governing circle where all the circles are supposed to send a rep, and in the sociocracy model, that rep is supposed to go back. They don't understand what they're doing. They don't understand how to listen, actually, for what's relevant to their circle. They get caught in what that circle is doing and they participate there, but they don't have the ears unless there's something major, like a date or something like that. But it just doesn't occur that maybe if we're going to do something here and they have to talk about it, they should know. There's been an assumption that they will somehow find out. So it's back to people, back to heart, back to really seeing us all together as a group doing the same thing and talking about it a lot. And that's a habit that we don't really have. So who is not gone yet? Rick, I think you came in later. Oh, and Zena. Yeah.
Can I request that I go in because I need to go on my bike in a bit?
Sure.
Hi, my name is Latina, and I don't know any of you. I got forwarded to this meeting from one of my colleagues from an organization called Common Land in the Netherlands. So this is where I'm based. And we work with holistic landscape restoration. So regeneration is at the core of our work. And we work with landscapes all over the world. And governance is at the moment a very important topic for a lot of our partners in different places, because they've realized that not only do they have to manage and govern their own organization, but they need to find a ways to govern a partnership across the landscape with a diversity of different stakeholders. And for that reason, we are hosting currently for them a learning journey where they are going to explore the topic of governance together and figure out how they can help each other figure it out in their local context, but then learn from the global community. Yeah, I'm just here to I don't know, to learn, to share some of our experiences as we go. And yeah, to hear some different perspectives as well, because I think we are sometimes quite stuck in our own ways. And sometimes, yeah, I mean, we talk also a lot about holacracy, sociocracy. Yeah, Elinor Ostrom principles are also something we'll include in the program of that learning journey. Yet I see how frequently what Catherine was just talking about, that we talk about these things, but we don't really practice them. So how do we translate our understanding of how things should be into doing them in that way? And that's one of the questions we're exploring as well. And yeah, it's the end of my working day, so I'll jump on my bike because I'm in the Netherlands. That's what we do. And yeah, listen to you for the rest of the meeting. But yeah, just wanted to say that I'm very present and very interested to keep being part of the conversation, even though we just meet. So nice to meet you all.
And thanks for joining us, Latina. I'll send you the form for the GRC membership so you can get access to the Slack and all that kinds of things. And we are recording the session. I got your email, so I'll get back to you on that. So thank you for joining. And it's exciting to have somebody from Common Land involved, because I think that you guys are really on the ground in these kinds of questions. So should we do Rick and then Russell?
No, Russell, go first. Turned off the camera and posted.
Russell, are you there? Yeah, we just.
Yeah, did you say me? I thought you said
Yeah,
Rick
go.
first.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Russell.
Hi, my name's Russell Baldwin, and I've been looking at sociocracyforall.org as a way of organizing, and also, looking at to assist with governance, because I see them as two different things. Governance, my experience with that, I've been on several boards, including the Orange County Employees Retirement System board, and they ran in a classic, board fashion, if you will, the majority rules, and it doesn't work, or it does work to maintain the power of those who already have it. What I finally concluded is that in order for governance to work in a way that benefits everybody, is that we have to have everybody's state of mind changed, as well as the way we govern. And I tried to, I trained in some sociocracy. I took the sociocracy what do they call it, academy. We call it an academy. And I dropped off after I felt like I understood what they were doing, because it seemed like there were limitations that would not be overcome when you try and expand beyond a certain point. It just gets too complex. And so I've been searching around, and I put a link in the chat for fractal organizations, which is where I think we have to go. And I have to say I don't understand it yet, but what it looks like is you get something that works, and then you have above and below, you have the same structure. So you're able to link together as many as you want, organizations that are all connected through the fractal organization. So I mean, that's what I'm looking at now.
Rick?
I'm just fortunate to be listening to this conversation, because actually I'm at work and between patients at the moment, and there's a no-show. So I popped in. Love the conversation. Michelle, I understand your sentiment about what's governance about, you know, that's a part of the problem. And so how do we make it exciting that people need to get invested in it? And you know, Lynn, we've been meaning to have a chat about governance for a while, and we haven't had it. But Catherine, I love the stuff you were talking about. You know, it resonated with me. And just lastly, Russell, when you talked about fractional structures, my understanding is that actually, if it's done well, sociocracy does have those fractional structures, but I might be incorrect on that. But I just, you know, sometimes you get these different schools and they use different languages, and sometimes they don't, you know, jive, and sometimes they're talking the same things, and sometimes they think they're talking the same, but they're different. I mean, to me, this is all the language of governance, of how you actually, you know, work through it. So my sort of little area that I'm interested in is how to use what I'm calling cultural humility to be able to foster those co-creative dialogues that we need to have. And where power sharing is dynamic, it's fluid. I coined a phrase called coarchy, which is a play off of matriarchy and patriarchy, but it's actually a dynamic, fluid distribution of power that goes in the direction that it needs to go based upon the dynamics, the needs, etc. Unfortunately, it gets so codified and rigid that power gets concentrated in certain ways that makes things dysfunctional. Anyway, that's just a quick rambling, and I'm going to have to go shortly, I suspect. But I'm glad to hear. I'll come back and listen to this one.
Thanks for joining, Rick. Let's see, Joel, and then is it Quan? Yeah. Quan.
Yeah, hi, hi everyone. Yeah, so I'm interested in governance from the perspective of sort of expanding regenerative practice across the world. So right now I work in a company called Jet Group that's focused on large scale regenerative transitions. We kind of practice out of the Regenesis lineage of regenerative practice, which stemmed from, you know, John Bennett, David Bohm, those kinds of thinkers in the mid 20th century. Yeah, I'm interested in what does it take for groups of people to participate in and envision their own application of community-led governance that's specific to their social and cultural practices, as well as being specific to the place that they live in. So really, yeah, excited to see where we take this here in this group. Thanks.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Quan? Quan, is the tech working? Can you hear us? If you may be muted.
Yeah, hear me?
Got it. Yeah.
All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Juan Brown. I'm kind of green to the subject of governance as far as what I'm looking to do or part. I'm really here just for the experience and listen, gather more knowledge and wisdom about different problems when it comes to governance. I believe that we all should have a system in which governance could be almost semi-autonomous, where you don't have those parties feel left out. Everybody gets his voice.
I can't really hear Quan. I'm not sure if everybody else can. Can everybody else hear Quan okay?
It's a little bit difficult one. I think he's on a phone, but I am hearing it.
Hold on 1 second. Yeah, I'm on a phone and I'm on the road, so it's probably a little hard of hearing. Y'all can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead and finish, and we can get it from the recording too.
Okay. Yeah, but I'm kind of a big system thinker. My passion is data analysis, seeing what problems there are, seeing how we create more simple solutions. But I'm just here for the ride.
Thanks for joining, man. Les, I think you might be the last, unless I missed anybody.
Good, last but not least. I've got real problems with my computer. When I put my screen on, I can see that I'm using up like 99% of my available memory. So excuse me if I disappear. Very interesting, fantastic listening to all your introductions. It really is inspiring. This is a really special group. I'm very interested in sociocracy, and it's unusual to be in such a rich, diverse mix of people's experience of sociocracy. I chair the board of trustees. I know Catherine will be excited at that. I chair a board of trustees. I'm an appendage of the Permaculture Association Britain, which you'd be pleased to know practices carbon governance, and what a brutal force that is. I'm also had a long track record in community currency development, which is morphing into an open measure tool, which I'm very interested to see how we can measure the impact of decisions, both measured against our purpose and also to measure exchanges of value, which I think will be very interesting to use towards the measurement of carbon in terms of carbon usage or exchange. So that's another system. So I have permaculture as a system, and it'd be great to talk to is it Slatina with Common. My small social enterprise in the United Kingdom is called Common Resource. So the common, to build the common movement is something that I find interesting. So I'm working with 3 systems. I'm trying to see what comes fractally or what pulses from that and what emerges from that. And just to share with you my final thought on sociocracy, which is it's not particularly a governance system, it's a way of making decisions. So it can sit within other governance systems. It's a way of making decisions, which I think if we understand that, it will help us apply sociocracy. And I'm complete. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Les. Yeah, I don't know. That's it's great to meet everybody. This is a really good group, and there are a number of folks who were interested in participating but couldn't make this time slot or couldn't make it today. So there are other folks who are I'm excited about having have their voices in the mix as well. So any reactions or thoughts just on the introductions and what you've heard?
I just want to echo how rich and diverse the group is, and I'm really excited. I mean, there's voices that aren't here, obviously, but there's great insight already.
David, I have a quick question about technical question about the chat. I want to try and record it or, copy it, but I don't seem to be able to do that. At
It
least,
should be there should be 3 dots down at the bottom of the chat,
yeah, I'm
and that
getting
should
those.
give you a save chat option.
Yeah, it doesn't. It just says copy or quote. So I'm
At the
not
very,
sure.
very bottom of the chat bar, maybe you have to scroll down even farther.
Oh, there we go. Okay. Yeah. Thanks. Okay, good.
Okay.
Got it.
Yeah, I will also post this chat to the Slack, and I'll post a link to the recording to the Slack. Let me also, I'm just in terms of kind of housekeeping here, I'm sticking the links in the chat here. If you would, let's use the Slack channel as much as possible for our conversation. If you're not comfortable with Slack, it's kind of like, it's the worst system except all the others kind of thing. If you're not comfortable with it, I'm more than happy to kind of give introductions or, kind of get one-on-one with folks and get you used to it. So, it's just a cross we bear. I stuck a link to a Google Doc that I've just started kind of randomly to try to give some structure to our thoughts. So the Slack will be a little bit stream of consciousness. Maybe we can use the Google Doc to a little bit kind of create more of a synthesis. And so I stuck the link to that in the chat as well. And then if there are other kind of tools or resources that people want to try to use in this context, let's use it. I mean, I think that people are definitely referring to a number of different documents in the Slack that look fantastic. It's like, I don't know, we want to try to organize that in some way. I would love to have kind of public exhaust from this process. I mean, this doesn't have to be within the GRC. I mean, I can certainly, Lynn, we're counting on you to write some articles, but there might be other things that should come out of this kind of discussion. And so if there are things that you see that you're certainly willing to take to shepherd along, then I think, I would be more than happy to support that, and I expect other people would as well. So, yeah, Rick.
Very, very brief because I have to go. But one question: has anybody had much experience with using Substack? Because I've just started using it, and it has a membership site. It's from what I can gather, and I've experimented with different ones, it looks the most promising, and I'm just testing the waters with that. The nice thing about it is you can go public. So everything we're doing here doesn't have to go to a Slack channel. You could have everything there. You could have co-authorship. You can have, there's a lot of, actually, David, let's have a chat about this. Okay, I've got to go. Okay.
Thanks, Rick. Yeah, I'll text you. I'll text you. Cool. Yeah. So I guess as far as we've got kind of 20 minutes left if people want to use it. The one thing that I think might be most important is, when do we want to get together in this format? I realized that I managed, in my infinite wisdom, to book this in conflict with one of the other GRC series that meets pretty much every other week, the Serious Games group. I don't know if there's conflict with that, but I try to avoid duplicating. So I would love to move this to a different time. One of the options was Friday mornings at kind of this same time slot or an hour later. Either one works. And, I don't know if the logic of GRC sessions tends to be, kind of 8 or 9 a.m. in California, which tends to be kind of 5, I don't know what time it is in the UK, but 5 p.m. or so in the UK. And we catch, a chunk of Europe, a chunk of of the Americas, and then, desperate people like Brian in Australia. And we could do more than one session. We're not limited to one, but that's been kind of the default time slots for sessions. So would Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific work for people?
It's not my favorite slot of the week in Europe, because it's kind of Friday at 4 or 5 p.m. and often there's social things around business that go on at that kind of time. But
let's look for another then.
Does an hour earlier help any if it's 8 a.m. Pacific?
Yeah, it helps a bit. Yeah.
I think Joel, check me, is that 4 p.m. in the UK?
So this slot now is 4 p.m. UK, and it's 5 p.m. on the continent. So as an hour earlier would be 3 p.m. UK and 4 p.m. on the continent.
And then I think we're doing daylight savings time like this week, right? So we're gonna spring forward. So it'll be, I don't know when do you guys change clocks?
Yeah, that'll happen at some point. I don't know, maybe later this month or something. And are there any other days that are options, David, or is there something on from the GRC sort of every other day of the week around this time slot?
I mean, I think we could do Wednesdays. Does kind of those 8 or 9 a.m.s Wednesdays?
Maybe.
That would be good for me.
I would generally try to make that work. Wednesdays. Won't happen immediately, but over time, I can wean out my Wednesday stuff.
Okay. Should we, any opposition to that? I don't know. What's the no, we just have questions, and then who's got the sociocracy chops?
As long as it's early, like 8 a.m. Pacific on Wednesday, that would be okay.
That's better for me too.
8 a.m. Pacific, that's 11 a.m. Eastern, and 4 p.m. UK, at least until everything changes. Yeah.
Are we thinking once a week?
I thought we would just put it on the calendar for once a week, and we can again adjust as if it's too much, then we can slack it off, and kind of do it. But a lot of the standing calls, it works pretty well. It seems for people to be able to just have it on their calendar and they drop in if they want. I mean, it may be. I would love to, again. I'm not sure how this is going to develop, but if we're actually ending up with kind of work tasks we want to do collaborative, we might be breaking into subgroups, or I can imagine a bunch of different variations. So. We were thinking that we might have some speakers, kind of people presenting, talking about sociocracy, talking about other kinds of formal formats, and that, I mean, that's again all for us to decide how we would like to structure it. I'm more than happy to kind of take responsibility for coordinating with people and trying to invite people in and do the time coordination and things like that. So I can be the secretary.
Dave knows that I would really appreciate being able to walk by some of the thinking that I have by this group, because I think you're going to inform it, challenge it. So, and I have a bit of a time schedule on that. So somewhere over the next month, I would be deeply grateful. I can't make every Wednesday, but I mean, if I could work with Dave. It would be just such great timing. I'd be really, because I think the minds on this, and plus your perspectives, and oh my gosh, I need it.
I think that would be fun. So yes.
Okay, great. I'll update oh, sorry. Go ahead, Michelle.
Yeah, I'll just throw into that. I too would appreciate that. And in doing so, I would like, for me, what would be more useful is like a slide or two with a concept and some brief explanations, and then breakouts or conversations, like a more dialogic than like one way, like intentionally, super intentionally dialogic and reflective. That would be my request.
I think that's a good one. And I'll just say that I think what would work is I send something in advance as you can read, and then I won't have to present so much. It won't, yeah. I think I can meet that, Michelle. I think it's a good challenge for sure, for me.
I have a question around what is our, so in the sociocracy language that I learned, there's a vision, mission, and aims, and
domain.
So, sorry?
Domain?
No, that's kind of a different thing. Yeah, well, I mean, that's an important aspect too, but what is our, so defining these things basically, and what is it that we're up to? And I don't imagine we're going to do that in the next 15 minutes, but also in terms of sort of the pro-social, the first print, design principle, how do we define our group? What is the sort of boundary around it, and also what is our purpose? So a shared identity and a shared purpose. And I'd love to be clear on those things. I was going to offer maybe we could do a one of the things that we did in the pro-social course that I took was we practiced running a group through the ACT matrix. So there's the 4-quadrant matrix. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but I'd be happy to do a session like that if people are interested, but we don't have to do it that way. Anyway, yeah, just defining those things I think is kind of important for feeling like, motivated to be part of the group and also feeling empowered as a group.
Yeah, Colleen.
Maybe I'm just going to expose my own ignorance here. But I think that the people that we're most trying to influence sometimes are folks that don't necessarily agree with us. And I run into this all the time living in Utah, which is probably one of the more conservative states in the nation. And having lived in other parts of the country and picking up vocabulary from those various different parts, I find myself at odds with the people who have the ability to make the most difference. And the people that have the ability to make the most difference are the people who sometimes are knee deep in feces. And I mean, quite frankly, I think that this has to be not just a purely ivory tower kind of discussion. I think we need to really get down to earth with the people, who are out there, shoveling muck and who do not consider themselves to be either privileged or not privileged. They're just hardworking people that are doing a good job every day, taking good care of their animals and their land, and making sure that all the rest of us eat. And so that would just be my caution here is, let's make this governance discussion something that's practical on an everyday level for people who may not even understand what we're talking about. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but hopefully it does.
Well, I mean, I can give one kind of framing from kind of a GRC perspective. Why would the GRC want to be hosting something like this? And I'll caveat that by saying I don't think this has to be only the GRC. We could, include other people or other groups or whatever we want to do. But from the GRC perspective, the notion is that the members of GRC are entrepreneurs in regeneration, and you're trying to do governance of one form or another, or you're interacting with it, or you'd like to see it transformed. And so this is a co-learning group that the individual members would then leverage whatever they learn or participate or create, kind of. So that would be kind of the notion of why it might live here. Is this is supposed to be able to support you folks in the work you're going to be doing as you go forward in this, creating the regenerative future. So yeah, I love the idea, Colleen, that this should be very applied, and hopefully it's people in the room who are going to be applying it.
That I love it too. And sorry, Catherine, I know you have your hand up just on this topic. It's kind of an alternative, like Colleen. I love the I love the steer, and kind of an alternative to getting in like speakers who are kind of like experts in governance could be like to get in people who are just working in governance from the current dominant paradigm, right? It could be fund managers, you know, if any of us have access to those who are like, you know, who are vested in keeping the current paradigm of governance the way that it is, or something like that, right? To sort of someone to understand what is keeping the current system working the way that it is, you know, or anybody else who's kind of, as you said, doing governance, doesn't really care that much about our agenda, but represents essentially the current dominant paradigm.
I'm actually more interested in what Lynn and Colleen have talked about in terms of what is governance really. We've grown up with a system of governance, and we probably have some feelings about what that purpose is or has become. But from a regenerative perspective, is that concept different? Are we changing what we need to have happen when we think of governance? I think those are really rich places to play, because we don't really know what that is, and because it might help us really get rid of some of the old stuff fairly quickly, because you can see that it doesn't do that. I'm not so interested in exploring where we've been, frankly. I just am interested in the contrast, and I'm very interested in regenerative. My work on the patterns of nature and how that fits in, I'm really curious to see how those would fit into a governing system. Nature governs in some kind of way, okay? I mean, everybody kind of seems to go along. Things seem to fit and work. How does that happen? And is there things that we can learn from that? That for me is a rich place to explore, because it is new and because it's worked for a long time. And discovering where we step out of that form, which is, I think, one of our big issues. We step out of those patterns. Freya, what's her last name? Marshall, I think, has a very interesting article reflecting on our ability to reflect and how that takes us out of the system. Because when we reflect on the system, we stand back and we're no longer in it. The problem is that we do that and we don't go back in. We stay out here and do stuff, and then it doesn't connect, and we get into power over. You can't be with when you're outside the system. You have to be in the system to be with. And how do we govern with each other as opposed to at each other or on each other, which is kind of the current system we have. Trying to come up with some way of sharing those patterns, to Colleen's point, would be helpful in a language that people can understand.
Catherine, can I just ask a quick question on that? The so your comment around like less interested in exploring where we've been. I think my interest in it was more from how do we change and what's keeping things in place the way they are. Is that a topic that you're interested in exploring?
I think what keeps it in place is definitely part of the conversation. I tend to be optimistic and think that if we can make a good case for how it could be, has worked in other cases, that maybe it's easier in a transition. But breaking habits is just really hard.
Yeah.
You know, this really is. And you always default to what you're comfortable with, which is what you already know, you know. So how to massage that space is very worth a discussion.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think also to be considered as far as governance is concerned is how much governance is a matter of helping people optimize their own personal agency versus, yeah, I mean, an inside out versus an outside in, if that makes sense. I mean, our particular model at Rainbird is an inside out more type of model. And that works as long as, you know, we're kind of small and people have an option to leave if they don't like what they're seeing or whatever. But I think, you know, when I think about inside out, I think about human development and the processes of human development. Like for instance, you know, we all start out dependent on our families and our parents and all that sort of thing. Most of us go through some kind of an independence type thing, where we explore our own talents and abilities and our own desires and all of that sort of thing. And then we can finally, once we have sort of mastered the creature, or at least know who the creature is, then that creature can be put to work in an interdependent way of caring and sharing the burdens with our fellows. And very often what happens though is we end up going in a different kind of direction where young people become counter dependent, and all they can think about is how do I fight the system, and then they end up in codependent relationships further on down. And so that kind of you know, starting out dependent, then you either become independent or counter dependent, and then at the other end, you're either codependent at the bottom or interdependent at the top. And I think it's really important for us to be able to develop systems that help people learn how to govern themselves. The use of agency in a way that is really beneficial not only to the person, but to the overall society, so that we have less need to do enforcement. I think that's been a real problem as things get larger and larger. And so a great deal of what we're doing is fractalizing, as I've heard you mention here, and keep it small. You know, you've got to keep the groups small enough that people know and care about each other. And that manages a lot of it right there. So, yeah. And I think it's really interesting, Catherine, what your church group is doing to experiment with some of that. I think that that's a perfect way to come to grips with a lot of it, honestly. Yeah.
I think one of the big questions of governance is how do people do what they don't want to do or don't like to do or don't understand to do in a way that doesn't destroy their agency and at the same time make a mess of the larger system. And that's kind of the key piece where the rubber hits the road. What do you do when people don't want to do what they should do for the whole? And how do you manage that space? Yeah. And in nature, everything's relationship. And so I think that it's really not that different. It's just harder to do relationship when people move a lot. So they're always new and they don't really have that trust built up. And if you don't talk to them,
Well,
it's really hard to have a relationship.
It really, really is hard. And what we found is that, there's enough natural diversity within humankind. There are actually people who like to do bookkeeping. I've been doing it for 30 years and I've hated it the whole time. But there's actually people who like that. And so I think if we could bring people together who have gone through that independent stage, who know who they are, who are ready to self-actualize, so to speak, we're going to find out that there's people who like to do all kinds of different things, and including, you know, mucking out the stalls. There are people who feel very much alive doing that sort of work. And so I think that whole aliveness, and all of us have to do something occasionally that we really don't like. I mean, this is my least favorite time of the year because I'm knee deep in tax work and all that. And you know, I'm a person who would rather do without currency in the world. I mean, at least the money type. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Catherine. How do we deal with things that people don't especially like? And maybe some things you don't mind doing if you're doing it together. You just don't want to do it alone. And so I think all of those stewardship kind of functions where the commons are concerned, because the commons needs to be stewarded. It needs somebody to be responsible to say, no, you know, don't put that tool away dirty. Clean it before you put it away, kind of thing, you know. So anyway, these are things that I think about a great deal.
Thanks, Colleen. I love that. I wonder if stewardship is another good word for governance. I don't know. Russell, you had your finger up, I think.
Yeah, thank you. So I love that recent conversation, because I've been thinking a lot about how we almost instinctively think, okay, so-and-so put the tools away dirty, so, you know, we got to do something about that, instead of thinking about at the same time, okay, what do people like to do? How can we build the system such that there is no need to put away tools, or the tools are cleaned on their own, or, you know, whatever it is that automatically takes care of these issues in a way that fits into the way humans like to live. Somebody said nature does engineering and governance, and yeah, and it's excellent. You don't see the roots going complaining about, you know, sucking up water and nutrients for the tree. That's what they do. And so if we build a system where we put the people in place and that's what they do, that's what they're designed to do, that's what they love to do, then we don't have any of these issues of regulations and, you know, punishment and so forth. All that is a old way of thinking, and I think our new world will avoid a lot of that.
I know like Bobby Fishkin's been doing a lot of this work where he's, instead of having an organization where you define boxes and then recruit people, he recruits people and then helps to create a structure for them. And I think it like blows my mind sometimes to try to think about how an organization works this way. We are at the hour, so I just want to give everybody a heads up. If you're gonna need to take off, that's absolutely cool. I can stay up here for a few more minutes. We've set up for next Wednesday to be the first session. If it's okay with everybody, I'll get Lynn to kind of lead that session, and we'll start to have, you know, like this is a co-creation kind of thing, so we'll get to exercise our own autonomy here. And Lynn, let me point over to you. You're raised your hand.
Yeah, thank you. A couple of things, and I'm very mindful of Michelle's request, because I think that makes a better meeting, is more dialogue. So what I will do is I'll kind of create something that you can read, you know, at the top of the call or something, and then we can kind of have discussion about it. But I'm kind of giving a warning too, is that, and I'm thinking, I'm actually asking permission, because you might, so it has to do with like, who is the target group, right? So for me, the target group is existing boards in classic board governance. So there's so many, but at the same time, I'm going to find principles. So just to be mindful, and I'll say it again, is that it might disappoint those who, you know, who are looking at sort of more of a startup kind of, you know, how do we, so yeah, so I think the principles will apply, but I so would appreciate your feedback. Honestly, it's very important. So I just wanted to say, and I look forward to you know, sharing with you what I'm thinking about next week.
We have to deal with boards. They're everywhere. I've been on several. So,
Sometimes I call them the wealth holders because they kind of usually are.
yeah.
Thank you. This was really fun. I've been looking forward to this for weeks, and it's great to have Zlatina, you're back. You're off the bike? Any final words of wisdom?
I'm at home practicing different kind of governance. Because he's the last year I know.
Oh, he's cute.
Yes, but I'm back and I've been listening, and I'm very grateful for listening to you practicing, and I'm very much on board for Wednesdays. So that's my short input.
Great. Well, bring your friends and we'll rejoin on Wednesday. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.